Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new episode of At the Buzzer Sports, where we talk all things basketball all the time. I am your host, John Drummond, and we have a guest on the channel, my very first guest. So you know we got to treat him right. Everybody show love in the comments. His YouTube channel will be in the description. DeHave, man, how you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. I think you do great work, and I'm appreciative that you had me on.
No problem, man. I appreciate that. And I think you
Yeah.
do amazing work as well, man. I mean, your deep dives have been great. You
Thank you.
know.
Thank you. Yeah, I love making them. Yeah.
Now, what can I call you? Is DeHave okay?
DHave's great. Yep. Yep.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
actually
Cool.
happy you pronounced it right because a lot of people say DHave or whatever. But
Okay. Okay. Now, as you guys could tell from the thumbnail and from this banner below, we're going to be talking about our 5 breakout players for this 2024-2025 NBA season coming up. Now, before we get started, what do you look at in a player and really put together that he's going to break out this upcoming season?
so I look at a couple things. I mean, if they are a player that's had, you know, it could be a couple things. It could be towards the end of the last season that they, started to put together a lot of consistent games. And young players obviously are generally what you look for. The
Yep.
younger, usually the better. I think something I look for is does a player have a couple seasons in a row where they've improved, and you can see a lot of things that this guy's getting better, and next year he's on track to reach a place he hasn't been before. Things like that. Generally, I'd say.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I look at a player, one situational is key. Like situation is key. If we look at Tyrese Maxey, you could
Yeah,
kind of see the situation changing. No more James Harden. He's really going to
absolutely.
be the number 2 on that Philadelphia 76ers team. And then
Right.
Joel Embiid ended up getting hurt for most of the season. So he had a lot of opportunity. Even though he did not play the best, he still had that opportunity to really put himself forward.
Well, thank goodness for that for my Sixers. We need Tyrese Maxey's our savior, so
Just got paid too. I'm a
pretty good
really
deal.
big fan
Yeah,
of Tyrese
I'd pay
Maxey.
him more if we could. Yeah, honestly.
Yep. All right, man. I'm gonna let you go first with your first breakout player.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So Jalen Johnson, the power forward, small forward for the Hawks, he is a player I've talked a lot about on my channel, and honestly, I think he has probably the best ceiling of anybody on my list. He has the athleticism that you look for in a star power forward. His transition finishing ability, his finishing ability in general, and also he's a improved passer. He's, as I mentioned in the intro, he's a player that's gotten better every year in the league so far. This will be his 4th season upcoming for Atlanta. And I think his just overall ceiling is super high. You look at his 3-point numbers have improved and things like that. So, with better players next to him next season and kind of having like a consistent, second option kind of role, I think he's the second best player in the Hawks. And I just think, him, Trae Young being out towards the end of last season, he was banged up a little bit throughout the year. So I think he is in line for a star caliber season next year. I think he's really going to hit that mainstream next year.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially no DeJounte Murray. Trae Young is one
Yeah,
of the best playmakers in the league. He's going to get him a lot of looks. Trae Young is the type of person that creates a lot of attention for a defense. So with the lob ability that Jalen Johnson has, the athleticism,
absolutely.
the cutting, the outside jump shot getting better every single season, he's definitely going to be able to put forth his talent and possibly be a 20-point per game or more type of player this season.
Also, the rebounding and two-way player I should have mentioned as well. Great two-way
Exactly.
player. So yeah.
All right, my first player I want to talk about is Cade Cunningham. Now, Cade Cunningham going into his 4th season. Last year, he averaged 23 points per game, 7.5 assists, 4 rebounds, shot 45% from the field, and 35% from 3. Now, one thing that I want to look at Cade Cunningham, especially when we look at some of these number 1 picks or these big talent guys that come in the NBA draft, is they usually have the team centered around their skill set. And I feel as though Cade Cunningham is not that player that has had that as of yet. I think Cade Cunningham is the type of scoring guard plus playmaking guard, to where you can really have him as the offensive engine and be a winning team. But you get guys like Asor Thompson, you get guys like Ron Holland. These guys can't space the floor, so I don't think his game has really been tended to as much in his tenure with the Detroit Pistons. When you bring in guys like Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, these guys aren't the best players. You also have Tim Hardaway Jr. you just brought in, but they can space the floor. That's something that they will be able to do to give Cade Cunningham more space to work. And he can really jump up to a 25-9 type of player instead of being a 23-7 once again. I think he has that talent.
I totally agree. I think that's a great pick first off, because, despite the 14-win season, Cade Cunningham played like a star last season. He really played like you thought he would, as that first overall pick from Detroit. So, that is a great pick. And I definitely see the veteran leadership of guys like Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr. playing a big role for him next season. As you mentioned, the spacing ability as well.
100%. Go ahead, bro.
So, for my second pick, I'm going to have the Spurs two-guard Devin Vassell. And this is a player that has been, steadily rising as a scorer and, offensive player as, just in general for the Spurs, and took a massive efficiency leap last season. You look at his first couple years, you could see he was a good scorer, but, still young, kind of raw. Last season, he really took that efficiency leap, and probably, you can make a case for Wemby, but probably your best on-ball creator, all things considered, that you're going to look to late in games to hit big shots, things like this. And, I just think he takes an even bigger leap with the Spurs actually trying to win games next season. So,
Right.
Potentially. So I think with that, I would predict them to be somewhere around 25, 30, 35 wins in that kind of range. And he's going to be a big part of that for me. So that's why I have him.
And I definitely like the ability, like one thing that's been rising in the NBA is the two-man game between a big and a guard. You got Maxey and Embiid, Jokic and Murray, potentially Jalen Green and Sengun. And I think Wemby and Vassell are going to build the groundwork for that going in the future, especially with guys like Chris Paul and Stephon Castle, who are going to be solid playmakers for the team. And Wemby, who is kind of one of the obvious jumps to be a breakout player next year, the jump he's going to be able to take. I think defenses are going to really zone in on Wemby, and it's going to get a lot of open shots for Devin Vassell.
Definitely great takes. Yep. W.
Next person I want to talk about is Cam Whitmore, a versatile 6'6" shooting guard / small forward. I'm just going to call him a wing. This guy, he's jumps out the gym. He's very athletic. Last year, he averaged 12 points, 4 rebounds on 45% from the field and 36% from three, all in 18 minutes in the game. If you change that to 36 minutes, his 36 per stats would be 25 points on 45% from the field and 37 from three. That is something that is amazing. And Houston, they have such a young core to where Cam Whitmore hopefully is going to get more minutes this season, maybe the year after. But I think with his talent and the talent that all these other young stars bring, guys like Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks may get traded at the trade deadline, so they will have to avoid paying them again, because I think Fred is on a 2-year deal. I think Dylan Brooks is also on a 2-year deal. I think guys like Cam Whitmore, Amen, Reed Shepard, these guys are going to get a lot more minutes as the season goes along.
Yeah, I mean, I love Cam Whitmore, and I, particularly his scoring and, shooting ability. He's just a pure bucket. Like you said, if per 36, that's 25 points a game. I mean, the shot, the 3-point volume was really good considering his around league average efficiency last year from three as a rookie. So his role definitely increased as the season went along. And I think one of your more high upside scorers as that, young core looks to grow with moving forward.
100%.
So for my third pick, I'm going to be having the newly acquired basically Toronto Raptor, who got a massive extension in the offseason. And a lot of people had some things to say about that. And that is Emmanuel Quickley, coming over in that Knicks trade with the OG Anunoby deal, right? And so Emmanuel Quickley looked like a totally different player with the Raptors last season than he's looked in his career. He had a much bigger role, like you said, the opportunity, the specific situation that he had with Toronto. This is a player that I think could look to be your guard of the future moving forward, and you could really build with this guy with your core of Emmanuel Quickley, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett. This is your young core, and I think with Emmanuel Quickley's big time role increase last season, with the Raptors, you saw massive leaps in his 3-point production. It was somewhere around like 40% from three on almost 8 attempts per game, which is wild. I always looked at Quickley as a pretty good, pest on ball defender. He's a little bit undersized. And then also his like microwave kind of scoring. That's kind of what he was for the Knicks, a 6-man type of scorer. And he comes in Toronto and just looks like a totally different player with a totally different ceiling. So I think he's going to have a much better season next year, getting more time in Toronto to be able to gel with this core and also get more opportunities.
I think the NBA is going to see how good of a defender IQ really is going into this season. I think his assist is going to take a jump this season, and I think he's a solid scorer. He may not be the number two scorer; that may still be RJ Barrett's role, but he's still going
Right.
to have the opportunity to put up solid numbers each night.
Totally agree. Yep.
All right, the next player I'm going to talk about is Scoot Henderson. Now, a lot of people say Scoot Henderson has played bad his rookie year, which is, I can understand it. You know, people have a very high opinion on Scoot Henderson, especially when he was coming out of the draft. You know, in a lot of cases, he would have been a number one pick in another draft, but there's Victor Wembanyama. But for his first 10 games, he averaged 9 points per game, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, 34% from the field, and 22% from three. And a lot of people would say that he was a bust or he would have played bad, but being such a young prospect and then being a point guard on top of that, it's not going to gel together in the first 10 games. And I think a lot of average fans do not realize that. Cade Cunningham, to his first few games in the NBA, did not play well. De'Aaron Fox was underwhelming. Steve Nash was underwhelming in his rookie year. These are first year players, 19, 20 years old, who are coming in to lead an NBA offense. That's not easy. Towards the end, go ahead.
No, I was going to say Russell Westbrook, you could make a case for as well, who is maybe a little bit of a good comp for Scoot Henderson's ability,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Like in his last 10 games, Scoot Henderson averaged 19 points per game, 9 assists, 40% from three, and 42% from the field. So there are things that you can look at in Scoot Henderson's game. Obviously, he's amazing downhill. He's very crafty at the rim. He can finish over players that are significantly taller than him. He's a great playmaker. And I think a lot of things people don't talk about is Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe. You still have to get them minutes, especially if you're trying to trade one of the two, which is most likely going to be Anthony Simons. You can't just sit him because then his value is going to go down. So Scoot Henderson is sharing minutes with two other significant guards on that squad. So I feel
really good ones too. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just think after maybe some more time, Scoot Henderson ends up getting, or not Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe or Anthony Simons end up getting moved. He's going to really have that offense built around him. And I think the Portland Trailblazers are just full of a lot of young players who are just waiting to pop. I think the Trailblazers are like, okay, we have a set group of young players. We have Denny Advia, we have Donovan Clingan, Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson. One of these guys are going to pop. And I think Scoot Henderson is going to be that guy.
I totally agree. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, it's okay.
If I talked about this in my Blazers deep dive, but I didn't actually mention this part of it, but I think there was a situation last season with Scoot Henderson where this was a flashy big time prospect that, like you said, people have a lot of expectations for going into his rookie season, and maybe it's just a situation where, like you said, he just might not quite have been that on that level, going into last year. Maybe he was a little bit less developed than we thought he would be, taking over an NBA team, right?
Right.
And, I just think that doesn't really change his overall ceiling or his talent that he already possesses. He just had to learn and grow on the fly. And like you said, towards the end of the season, he really did that. So totally agree. W.
And it's another thing I want to say is the Blazers had just moved off Damian Lillard. This is somebody who could be the best player the franchise has ever had, or top three for sure.
For sure.
And it's going to put a lot of pressure on a young guy who's just coming into the league, and he has to run an offense and be the guy that's basically essentially replacing Damian Lillard. I'm not going to say he's really replacing him, but he's going to be that guy that people would want him to be.
People look at it.
Franchise.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, those are big shoes, man. Like big shoes to fill. That's I don't know how you do that 100%. Successfully. So yeah. For my fourth pick, I'm going to go with the second overall pick in last year's draft, and that is Brandon Miller, the elite. I don't use that word lightly. Elite shooter for the Charlotte Hornets. And one of the things I like about Brandon Miller's season next year, we know about the shooting and the Paul George comparisons, but one of the things I think is most promising for him is that really he didn't even get a great opportunity to play with LaMelo Ball last season. And I think when you have Miles Bridges coming back on a big deal, you draft Salon, and this team looks a lot better next year. And knock on wood, if LaMelo Ball can stay healthy, I think that is a massive boost for Brandon Miller's overall game, despite even his improvements individually, right? So I think he will improve, and I think his volume increases, and I actually think he's going to get way more open shots than he's ever had in his life playing next to LaMelo Ball. He's going to knock him out. He's going to knock him down at a 40% clip or so. So, this could be one of the premier scorers in the league moving forward, for many years to come. 25 points a game score. He's got that type of upside for me. And I think next year is where you really start to see that blossom.
I think the Hornets are just one healthy season away from seeing like, okay, we have the core,
100%.
because we can't look at last season and be, okay, our best player was injured. But LaMelo Ball, when healthy, can be a top 10 point guard in this league. And then you have Brandon Miller, who looks like he's going to be one of the more premier scorers in the league. Mark Williams, who is a great post defender. He's a great rebounder. Nick Richards is a great rim protector. You have the core. Trey Mann got a lot better once he was acquired. And then Grant Williams is a solid outside shooter. Just a solid
Josh Green, you added as well.
Josh Green, great perimeter defender. There's a lot of things that are left to be liked about this Charlotte Hornets team. And with the 9th and 10th seed in the East just being wide open, any team can grab it. So I really like the Hornets. I really like them.
Yeah, I look for them and maybe like Toronto to be maybe two teams you look to see in those 9 or 10 that you're not expecting. Yeah.
Okay, my next player is going to be Jet Howard. Now, Jet Howard is, I think he's 6'6", 6'7". He's a wing. I think going further in my list, you guys are going to learn that I love wings. But he's
wing league
6'6", 6'7", and especially with the market of the 3-and-D wings and a team like the Orlando Magic who just needs shooters. There was times in that Cleveland series where it was just hard to watch because the offense without any floor spacing was just it was really tough to get baskets, and it was really tough for Paolo Banchero.
Right.
So, and we look at Jet Howard. In college, he shot 37% from 3 on 7 attempts. This season, he did not have a single game where he averaged over 10 minutes. But in 3 of the 4 preseason games he played, he shot 50% from 3. And he played, I think, over 15 minutes in every single one. So I think Jet Howard is that floor spacer that the Orlando Magic are really going to need, because I don't think just KCP is going to be the one to fix their shooting woes. I think Tristan DeSilva is going to have to hit some outside shots. Jet Howard's going to be called to hit some outside shots. And I think Franz Wagner is going to have to take that 3-point leap again because he had a down year, especially after getting all that money. But I think Jet Howard, especially with the 3-point shooting that he brings, he's going to get a lot of minutes for the Orlando Magic coming forward. And I think he's going to knock down those shots.
Yeah, I'm interested to see between like you said with the shooting, Jet Howard and Tristan DeSilva, who looked
100%.
really solid in the summer league. He looked like maybe one of the more ready wings out of the draft. And between like him, KCP, and then their 2 best players, Franz and Paolo, I'm interested to see. There's a lot of depth and solid young pieces on this team that are be fighting for minutes. And I think you're totally right about Jet Howard. It's probably going to be a situation where it's like, if whoever shoots the best is probably going to get a lot of those minutes. So, that's totally a good take. Totally. Yep. For my 5th pick, I'm going to be going with the Memphis Grizzlies forward, GG Jackson. And, GG last season really didn't get a we talked about, I actually cut myself off there. That was pretty interesting, but we actually talked about, how the Memphis Grizzlies last season was a transition period for them. It was kind of a transition year, right? So where all your best players are injured, and you're kind of just hoping to maybe find through this chaos and lineup destruction that maybe you could find a couple pieces, and they actually did. And I think Vince Williams Jr. and GG Jackson in particular, who we're talking about here, this guy really shined through, or whatever it is, struggling here in that chaos and turmoil last season with the lineup. So I think his floor spacing ability, his shooting ability, his mechanics are exceptional. I know last season, he had some great games, and then he had some, not so great games throughout the season, but the great games are encouraging enough for me to say, okay, when, Ja Morant, one of the premier talents in this league, comes back from injury, who's setting all these guys up, and he plays next to a guy like Zach Edey down low, and he plays next to a guy like Triple J to pair with him from the forward position. What's his output going to look like then? It's only going to get way better, and I think his efficiency is going to be more consistent. I think he has defensive upside as well, and he was a really solid player in the summer league as well. So he's shown that he can do it on the NBA level. Looked even better in the summer league, and now you get him coming back with this healthy lineup. And I think he takes another leap next season. Look for guys, a couple guys on this list, but GG Jackson really could have a solid, 16, 18 points per game type of average. You do have Morant, Desmond Bain, and Triple J taking a lot of those shots, but I think he is next in line for those opportunities for sure.
100%. And he was 18 years old throughout the whole season last year. He's going to be
One of the
19
younger
going in,
rookies. Yep.
one of the really young rookies. I think he was
Yeah,
the youngest player in the league last
it
season.
was.
So
Yep.
he has a lot of improving to do, and he's going to be next to guys like Ja Morant, Desmond Bain, kind of like the best of both worlds. You get the athleticism from Ja Morant, the shooting from Desmond Bain. These are guys that he can learn from throughout his
Absolutely.
tenure, and he's going to be great. He's going to be
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Now, my last player I'm going to be bringing up is Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray had 15 points per game last year and shot 36% from three. Now, we all know Keegan Murray is a better shooter than 36% from three. I mean, in his rookie year, he averaged 41% from the three ball, and he hit most threes as a rookie in a single season. I think Keegan Murray, especially with the additions of DeMar DeRozan and how much De'Aaron Fox likes to get downhill, how much he likes to work in the mid-range, especially with Domantas Sabonis and DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray is going to get a lot of open shots. And this is a guy who can knock the three ball down consistently. And people don't talk about how good he is on the defensive side as well. This is a guy that can explode. I mean, I wouldn't say he's to this degree, but we all know Klay Thompson was significantly better when Kevin Durant and Steph Curry got on the same team. Now, I'm not saying that's on the same degree, but it could be the same. It could work for an example.
That's a great actually example. I and the clarifier, makes it justifiable because Keegan Murray, like you said, the improved defense is really what stands out to me. If he's just going to be a high volume catch and shoot guy, which is what, I guess a lot of casual fans would think he is, that is something that you say, okay, well, maybe he isn't the guy you wait to make all these moves for and bank on his potential last offseason. But, like you said, with the improved defense and, the 36% doesn't do it justice. For one, you have to look at the volume. Okay. So when you take more threes, the percentage is a little different than I'd rather have a 36% shooter from three on whatever it is, 8 attempts per game than a 40% 3-point shooter on 2 attempts per game. It's just very different levels of there's levels, right? And he has
100%.
that exceptional value of an elite shooter, especially at his size. I mean, if he can even take a little bit of a leap in terms of like a mid-range type of creation game, face up, back to whatever it is. Like you said, DeMar DeRozan and Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox really taking up all of that attention. He's going to get half of his shots are going to be wide open. I mean, it's going to be insane.
100%.
And so, like you said, the numbers will absolutely rise next season. One of the better shooters in the league. If you look at a guy like Michael Porter Jr. for the Nuggets, how he has that dynamic shooting ability, kind of similar to Keegan Murray in that regard as a forward.
Yeah, man. And one question before we wrap up, who do you think has the highest percentage to break out of your 5?
I think Jalen Johnson is probably going to be the best player out of the 5, like moving forward. And I think he probably actually has, I think it's him. I think he has the best ceiling. And I also think maybe you could argue Brandon Miller, but Jalen Johnson next year could be an all-star. Like he's going to be that good. Like you said, it'll be somewhere around 20 points per game. He probably will be a 20-10 guy at some point in his career. I think you could see that next season. His rebounding is phenomenal. It could be something like 20, 10, and 5, on, plus 50% shooting. If he could keep the 3 ball around league average, like he did last season, he gets to the line well, and and he can defend. So if you see all him put together all that stuff next season, that's an all-star right there. If they're a play-in tournament type of team. So for sure.
100%. Now, the guy I have breaking out, my biggest percentage of breaking out is Cade Cunningham. There are a lot of this may happen for a lot of these guys on my list. Cam Whitmore, if he gets the minutes, Chet Howard, if he gets the minutes, Scoot Henderson, if Anthony Simons is let go. I think Cade Cunningham is going to have the ball for most of every possession for the Detroit Pistons. Cade Cunningham is going to have the ultimate green light when it comes to scoring. He's the best scorer on the team. He's the best playmaker. He might just be the best shooter when it comes to people that's going to be in the starting lineup. He's going to have the ultimate green light game in and game out. And I think he's going to have the biggest chance of breaking out of my 5.
That makes sense to me. That's a good take. Yeah, he's gonna ascend to the next level next season. No question about it for me. Knock on wood for healthy season for Cade.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. All right. I appreciate you coming in and talking ball with me. This has to happen again. I had a great
That
time.
100%, man. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, I don't get to do this with many people, so so I see someone who knows ball, and I love keep at your work because you're good at it, and I think like a lot of these guys on this list, you're going to improve as you go on. So you've been
I
doing this not
appreciate
that
that, man.
long, and I see a lot. I see a lot there, so for whatever that's worth, I don't, but
I
just yeah,
appreciate that, man. I
dude, keep it
appreciate
going,
that.
man. Thank you for having me.
Everybody, DeHave's YouTube channel will be in the link description below. I'm going to make sure I edit your Twitter handle at the bottom as
Oh,
well.
thank you, man. Thank you. I
No
appreciate it.
problem. No
Yeah.
problem. And if you guys like daily NBA content, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And subscribe to DeHave's channel. The link will be in the description. And I'm out. Peace.